I'm going to show you how to use the magnetic selection tool or the magnetic lasso tool. The first thing that we need to do is to create a new document. Remember, if at any point you need to pause to follow this tutorial, you can pause it and play it as you need to follow along. We're going to name our document Magnetic Lasso Tool. We want our units to be in inches, and we want a 5x7. We're good to leave our resolution at 300. Once your screen looks like mine, you're good to hit create. Now, we just finished a project where the grid was on and we were using it, but we don't necessarily need the grid for this particular tutorial. So we can go up to View, go to Show, and make sure the grid is unchecked to turn that off. Now, we are going to open up a new image in a separate tab. So we're going to go up to File, and we're going to go to Open. So we are going to open up this image of a picture, and then go ahead and click Open. Notice how that loaded in a separate tab. So just like how Google has tabs, Photoshop does as well for the different work areas that you might be in. So you should have two different tabs at this point in time. The tool that we're going to be using is the magnetic lasso tool. It is more than likely currently hidden under the lasso tool for you, which is the third down. So if you click and hold that lasso tool, it will take you to the magnetic lasso tool, and you can go ahead and click on that. Now I'm going to zoom in on this picture, that way I can see a little bit more because we are going to be selecting the outside of it. I do want to take a note of that this image is pretty pixelated, so it's not the best quality image, and I would not suggest using an image of this quality for an actual project. However, since this is just a tutorial, it will be good for what we are going to do. So the magnetic lasso tool selects objects, and the way it selects objects, it kind of guesses where you want your selection. The way that it makes this guess is from having a differing background color than what the subject is. So in this case, our subject is the picture. So the picture is like this coppery metal color, and the background is just a plain white color. So this is really great image to use for the magnetic selection tool because the background is so different. So I'm going to go ahead and start at the top, and I'm just going to click. And as I'm going, you can do this as well, you can notice that it has these little blocks that form. That is actually the magnetic selection tool working to know where you are trying to select. Now obviously if I went all the way over here, it would think that I was wanting to select something over in this area. However, since I don't want that to back up, I can actually just hit delete on my keyboard to back those up and come back down here. I'm actually just clicking and dragging this. I'm just dragging this. I'm not clicking at all. However, if I get to a spot like that where it didn't quite know and it didn't quite select the whole subject that I was trying to, I'm going to go ahead and hit delete to back that up. And I could click to add those points as well. But for the most part, if your subject matter is a different color drastically than the background, it will for the most part have a pretty accurate result of what you're trying to get. Once I'm to this corner though, I am going to go ahead and click. That way it knows that I want that corner to be selected as a hard corner. And then I'm going to keep on going around. And again, I might click a little bit more, especially down in this part. So the magnetic lasso tool is doing a lot of the work for me. I'm just having to click every once in a while to make sure that it stays on track. Now, once I get here, I can see that there is negative space in the picture. So this space up here, that's what we call negative space. But I don't want to select that space right now. I just want to go around the entire picture itself because we can come back in deselect that negative space later. So I'm going to go ahead and hit delete to back it up to here, and I'm just going to keep on going around the entire outside of this face, being as accurate as I can, maybe clicking to help it every once in a while. I would suggest clicking whenever you get to a corner, that way it knows that you're switching directions. Now, once I go back to my first point, kind of like in Illustrator when we were making a shape and not just a line, it will have a circle around it. That means that it is ready to close this selection shape. So we are good to go ahead and click that because it is all the way around our shape and we have completed a full shape. So once I select that, I see these little marching ants. Right away, I can tell that this area up here for me didn't quite get selected all the way. So if I hold the Shift key down on my keyboard, a little plus mark appears. That means that the selection tool thinks I want to add selection to my thing, which is perfect because I want to add that part on. So I'm going to click and hold the Shift button down, and I'm just going to drag and use that magnetic selection tool to add onto it. At this point, I can actually even switch to the regular lasso tool, click the Shift button, and even draw in that selection as well. I'm going to switch back to the magnetic selection tool now because I think everything else looks kind of great, except for this area right here. So for this area, I can see that it didn't quite subtract enough. So I'm going to switch back to the lasso tool because that's what's easiest for me. If I hold down the Option key, it subtracts from the selection. And you can see when I hold down the Option key, this up here changes as well. So you can physically see how that's changing. So I want to subtract this part. So I'm just going to make that part go out. And I notice down here, I wanted to add a little bit as well. So what key can I hold? Shift, which adds to the selection. Those are just the quick commands for those. You can also click up here. I think it's easiest to hold down the quick commands though. So Option is to subtract, and Shift is to add. So I think the rest of it looks pretty good for this tutorial right now. So once your vase gets to a good point, we are going to start attacking this part. So we need to subtract this negative space from our image because otherwise, if I want to move this, it would include that white area, so this blank space as well. So I'm going to go back to my magnetic selection tool. And since I know I need to subtract from this selection, I'm going to go ahead and click the subtract from this selection. That way I don't have to hold down my Option key the whole time. And then I'm going to simply go in and start to select the negative space. Again, clicking every once in a while in case I need to change the direction. Then, just like we did before, once that little circle pops up, I'm good to click it to select that. And you can see I have little marching ants on this side as well. Now I'm good to go in and clean it up. Again, I like to clean it up with the magnetic selection tool. So I see right away that this part got missed right here. So I'm going to add to the selection because I'm selecting the negative space. Or I'm going to subtract, I'm sorry. I'm going to subtract from the selection. There we go. And then for this part, I forgot that. I didn't add that part in, so I'm going to add to the selection that way. So at this point in time, I have marching ants around the inside of this negative space, and the outside of the entire object. So now I'm going to show you how to move this to your other artboard. So to move an object, you are going to be using the Move tool, which is the top tool of your keyboard. To move this, I can click and drag it around to move it within this artboard, but I'm going to actually want to move this to the Magnetic Lasso tool page. So I'm going to just click and drag this up. I am still holding on. I'm not letting go. I'm still clicking down because then if I click and drag this down here and unclick, it will make it appear on this page. Another thing that you can do is go up to File or Edit, Copy, and then I can click over to this other page and I can paste that on here as well. So now you can see I have my picture on here. To resize an image, if I wanted to make this bigger, I would have to transform it. So to transform this, I would go to Edit, Transform, and I want to change the size of it, so I can go to Scale. And then I can click and drag that up. Now, I don't have to hold Shift down because it automatically knows that I want to keep this image the same without being warped. Once you have your picture the size that you want it to be, you can hit Enter. I will say a quick way to transform an image is to hit Command T, and that will automatically, those are the quick commands to transform an image. Now, it won't let me click off anywhere because it thinks I'm still trying to transform this image, so I have to make sure that I hit Enter. If I were to copy and paste this over again, you can see how it you can see that I can see through this negative space. That's because when I selected it, I made sure to take out that negative space. Alrighty, and that is how you are going to be using the magnetic selection tool and the lasso tool as well.